So, welcome to Sharm el Sheikh. This is Miranda Barker. I'm the Chief Executive of East Lancs Chamber of Commerce.
Stephen Sykes, Director of Sustainability for East Lancs Chamber of Commerce, and also co-founder and director of the 2030 Hub in Liverpool.
So we're here at COP27, and this year we've been upgraded, haven't we? Because last year at COP26 in Glasgow, we were just in the green zone where the civil society actors are, but
this year we've managed to get through some very good contacts and very good favours. We've actually got into the blue zone as official observers. So we're actually taking more of a part of the programme rather than just being casual observers, having some very good conversations and getting some inside tracks.
We've met some really interesting people. We've been around while Rishi was doing his presentation. We saw Boris Johnson being absolutely sort of frocked in by a rugby scrum of people all shouting, "Boris, are you backseat driving?" which led to us meeting Chris Mason, which was rather good, of Newscast. And we've also met some really serious players like Ngozi, who is the Director General of the World Trade Organization. And we're cohabiting here in our hotel with the President of Kenya.
So interesting facts all round. The main focus, this is Africa's COP, and the main focus is around implementation. Promises were made in Glasgow at COP26, agreements were made. This is more of a focus on action, and also very much a focus on Africa. So there's quite a lot of African delegations here, and a lot of the talk is about loss and damage. So lots of financial discussions taking place.
It's really fraught, isn't it? Really, really fraught, because it's about the calls from those developing nations for reparations, effectively, for climate damage. And that's a really contentious discussion, and it creates quite a barrier between the nations. So that we need to try and make sure the conversation progresses in the direction of solutions. So financing solutions, but also green technology solutions. So very much about what we're about in East Lancashire, trying to drive those green technologies out into supporting the developing nations, the global south, so that helps them progress in the right direction. So you can feel the different tensions in the air when you're trying to pull the conversation away from the loss and damage into practical action that can help those nations transition.
For the viewers, you'll be pleased to know you're not going to get daily webcasts from me and Miranda just having an idle chit chat like this. We have actually lined up interviews with some very key players whilst we're here, and we'll show you some of those video conversations that we have with them. We've also got a series of voices from the Northwest, and actually put in what their hopes are for the achievement of COP27, but also what actions they're taking back at home to actually play their part. And the first one of these is Andy Burnham, who'll be coming up next.
So I'm Miranda Barker, Chief Executive of East Lancs Chamber of Commerce, and I'm speaking today with Andy Burnham, Mayor of Greater Manchester, on the occasion of COP27. So thank you for being with us today, Andy. We've known each other a long time, since your days back in Leigh, as my local MP, in fact, but this is the first time I think I've interviewed you. We're out here in Sharm el Sheikh for COP27, hearing what the world's politicians are committing to do to tackle climate change. As part of our work to make what's happening here as relevant to those businesses and communities back at home, we're speaking to all the key people we can find from across the Northwest and nationally who are leading on climate action. So, Andy, Greater Manchester has committed to be carbon neutral in 2038. Can you tell us, first of all, why 2038 and how are you going to do it?
When I came in as mayor, I said I wanted Greater Manchester to be the UK's leading green city region. And that meant setting ourselves a challenging but realistic timeframe to get to net zero. So colleagues here consulted the Tyndall Centre at the University of Manchester and said, well, what date could we realistically set? And they said to us, 2038 is going to be challenging, but is doable if you really go for it. And what it is actually different to other cities is a science-based target date as opposed to a political date. So it does have a lot of evidence underpinning in it. So that explains why it's 2038. And how are we going to do it? We're going to do it by changing our transport, changing our homes and our building, changing our energy systems. But in doing all of those things, joining the dots between the three of them and making this a better place to live, a more prosperous place to live by bringing in new industry and making this a fairer city region. So you decarbonise public transport, you can improve it at the same time. And I'm very much on with that at the moment. You know, when you buy new buses that are zero emission, you can obviously make them much better as well for the travelling public, and you can lower the fares. And that makes public transport a much more attractive offer than it is today. Or if you take people's homes, you can retrofit them again to make them zero carbon. But at the same time, you can improve people's homes and you can lower their energy bills. And that both deals with the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis, as well as the climate crisis. And if you look at all of these changes, it's actually a chance to bring on new industry with regard to, let's say, green hydrogen, which could be a growth industry for Greater Manchester in the future. So the way I see it, zero carbon is the future. Green growth is good growth. That's where we should be going. I kind of find it frustrating that there's different messages at a national level at the moment, sort of dragging us in different directions. From our point of view, we are set on this pathway. We want it to take us to a greener, fairer, more prosperous Greater Manchester, but also a more equal Greater Manchester. And we're going to do it by changing our transport, changing our homes, changing our energy systems, but also changing people's jobs and making people's jobs better and more plentiful.
So you've just held your 5th GM Green Summit. What progress has been made against your targets that you originally laid out 5 years ago? And what's proving to be the hardest impact area to make progress on?
We are making progress, but I'm not going to say it's fast enough. We do need to accelerate significantly if we're to stay on course to become a zero carbon city region by 2038. So it's not yet, our progress is not yet translating to the scale of carbon emission reduction that we need to see. If I were to rate the three big sectors, transport, buildings, energy, I would say we have something of a green rating on transport in that we have plans for the B network, a London-style public transport system. It will be the country's first zero carbon public transport system at street level, and we will be able to do that within a decade. I'm buying electric buses. We are electrifying our depots. You know, we are making big progress on transport, and people will begin to feel it within the next couple of years. And I'm confident that we can move at the required pace there. When it comes to buildings, I think it's more of an amber kind of rating. We are about to go out to the formal inquiry process on our spatial plan that covers 9 of our boroughs. That plan has a policy of 2028 as a date by which any new planning permissions in Greater Manchester will have to be zero carbon. Otherwise, they won't get planning permission. That will have the effect, we hope, of moving the market now to get the industry much more in the zone of zero carbon buildings. We shouldn't be putting up buildings that are going to have to be retrofitted. And we believe the adoption of our spatial plan will move the thinking in that direction. But we're not quite there yet, and our thinking is not as advanced as it is on transport. When it comes to energy, the third area, that's more of a red rating. We've done a detailed mapping process across our 10 boroughs. So we know where we are. We know the scale of investment needed to make our energy systems zero carbon as they move to a more localized set of energy systems. The level of investment needed is around £65 billion, which is a huge sum of money. But some of that would have been spent anyway in a business as usual scenario, just maintaining the current network. What we've got to do is find about a third of that money will have to come from new investment by bringing in new players who want to get into the growth energy markets of the future. So that's kind of, we know the scale of the problem is what I would describe it, but it's a red rating because we've not yet got the scale solutions that we need. But that's an honest assessment of where we are. We are making progress, but we kind of need government backing urgently to accelerate and to be able to stay on track for 2038.
We've all seen the national governmental policy confusion over the last few months. And I think when it comes to the climate change agenda, we're all really concerned that government's commitment doesn't waver. What do you really need to see change in national government policy to ensure they don't hold back your progress?
I think one of the areas that could hold back progress across all of the sectors that I've just mentioned is skills. I don't feel yet we have woken up to the scale of the skills challenge when it comes to the green economy. I don't think we are bringing younger people through school and into college where those green courses are there and leading them to the jobs in the green economy. I think when you look at the scale of the retraining challenge, when it comes to adults trained in traditional construction, bricklaying or other skills, who will have to pivot towards modern methods of construction or passive house construction. I think there's a big retraining job to do there. Or, for instance, in the world of transport, where people will have to move from combustion engine expertise towards EV. So there's a big training challenge here. I don't think yet, not just us, I don't think anywhere in the country is fully facing up to it. Our growth company in Greater Manchester is bringing through a Green Skills Academy to up our game, but I do feel we need the Department for Education and policymakers at a national level recognise that the green skills requirement is going to build year on year, and we need a new way of thinking about skills and technical education in this country that will allow us to keep pace with the requirement. What we need to see in national government policy is consistency, and consistency over the long term. And we really haven't had that. For me, I see the levelling up agenda as synonymous with the zero carbon agenda. The way to get to a more equal country across the regions is to drive the development of new industry through the green economy. That's the best way, in my view, to re-industrialise the north of England, but to do so in a way that is sustainable with our future obligations. And I don't see that consistency in government policy. So we've been dragged back to a fracking debate in the last few months, which is not helpful for people here in Greater Manchester, and certainly not helpful in Lancashire either, in my view. And if you think about the time since I've been mayor in 5 years, well, we've just had constant different changes in, if you like, levelling up policy with every change of Prime Minister and government. So it was originally called the Northern Powerhouse. Then it was the local industrial strategy under Theresa May. Then it became levelling up, and then it seemed to switch to local investment zones. And maybe it's now come back to levelling. Who knows? You can see the point that I'm making. We need consistency. We need a government that will back us for the 16-year journey to 2038, to stick the course, not keep chopping and changing. That is what we need. And I think that is what Lancashire needs as well.
So, Andy, thank you very much for your time today. We will be sure to take those messages back to the politicians we're speaking to here in Sharm el-Sheikh and at home. And thank you for your time. So here we are again from COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we want to introduce a video now of a conversation that I had on the stand in the big showground with Yunus Arikan. He is the Director of Global Advocacy at the ICLEI. So basically he's working with local governments all around the world on how to progress climate action. And he was very kindly our host for this week. So he's enabled us to be part of all of this really involved discussion with the politicians.
Pardon, I must admit, just to go, this is real life. We were having to hang around waiting for the BBC to finish filming with Nicola Sturgeon before we could do the important interview with Yunus.
So good morning. I'm here today with Yunus Arikan, who is the Director of Global Advocacy at the ICLEI. So Yunus, first of all, tell us about what the ICLEI does.
First of all, thanks a lot for your time. ICLEI is a global network of local and regional governments across the world committed for sustainability. We have membership around in 130 countries. Our network expands around 2,500. And we are actually living the legacy of the 1992 Earth Summit, the Agenda 21, where our founding sisters, brothers, fathers have been famous for pushing the local Agenda 21. And since then, we are aiming to make sure now is sustainability implemented at all levels. In particular, in the climate process, ICLE is also the coordinator of the network of local and regional governments. So it's not just us, but we are acting as a family, as a constituency.
That's superb. We're very glad that you're there.
Thank you.
So we're both here in Sharm el Sheikh for COP27. What are you hoping will be achieved through COP27?
Well, first of all, we are living the legacy, very nice legacy of COP26 in Glasgow. You may remember we were fighting a lot to have a recognition of local and regional governments that was achieved in the Paris Agreement. It was 2015. What we asked in Glasgow to make sure that time for multi-level action has come. The logic is that the crisis of climate emergency, as well as the opportunities, are so huge. No city, no mayor, no minister, or no country can solve it alone. The good news, in Glasgow, we have the preamble paragraph in the Glasgow Climate Pact, which says we recognize the importance of multi-level action. But here in Sharm el Sheikh, we are saying that it is time that multi-level action delivers, which means in the second phase of the Paris Agreement, we have to make sure the planning of climate action at the national and local level should be collaborative with all levels of governments on board, and they should also have the appropriate financial and technical resources from national and global processes. So in Sharm el Sheikh, we hope there will be a major, let's say, elevation of our efforts in this regard.
And that we'll move from all of that good intention to implementation.
Exactly.
So lastly, what do you really need the global governments to do to make sure you can achieve all of that multi-level action at the local level and the ground up? What do you need from national governments?
Thanks, especially because this is exactly what we're calling for. Yesterday, you have heard we had our first press conference of this opening of the COP27. We called for our call to action included. This year, there's a unique initiative led by the Egyptian COP27 presidency, and we, together with UN Habitat, have been supportive of this. This is a new initiative for cities in a more holistic way for multi-level action in the climate process. So we want national governments to endorse this initiative by the presidency. Second, this year we're also making a new innovation. We are bringing the ministers of urbanization and ministers of climate in the COP atmosphere, and this will be on the 7th of November. We believe this will introduce a new momentum to the UN climate processes so that different communities can act together. And we want this to be a regular agenda item of every COP, so that it is not anymore mayors versus nations or whatever, but rather all levels of government, all hands on deck, and in particular, the transformative power of urbanization could be a positive input to the climate action as well.
I think that's really important. If we don't act together, we won't get anywhere. Thank you very much for your time today, Eunice.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.